Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Anna Zietska. I'm the Executive Director of the Asheville Buncombe Community Land Trust, and my coworker.
Hey, I'm Kathleen Bauer. I'm the Program and Operations Manager.
This is everyone. This is the whole team. So we're all here today with you guys. We were actually supposed to do this presentation, I think, in early October. You all know what happened. So here we are. Thank you to Lotsar for agreeing to reschedule and have us. And thank you all for joining and willing to hear about what we're doing. We're a relatively new organization, so we're just trying to talk to as many people as possible. I know we've done this presentation a couple of years ago now, and a lot has changed. A lot has also not changed in that time, but it's been an interesting few years since we got started. So I'll go ahead and dive into the presentation. We will have plenty of time for questions at the end, and I think our friends at Home Trust are going to be coming in right towards the tail end of our presentation to say a few words, and then we will do Q&A. So as far as our agenda, this is it. So first we're going to dive into what are community land trusts. Then we'll give a little bit of historical information as far as kind of the reasoning for why we were formed as an organization. And then we'll talk about the benefits of a community land trust and how you all can get involved. Let's see if tech will work with me. So this is a really short video from New York that talks about community land trusts. I think it's just really quick and to the point. So I always say anytime you hear New York, just replace it with Asheville. It's almost the same. I know it's totally different places, but the way that costs are going, we're heading in that direction. So let's just listen to this. Hopefully the sound is set up.
New York City is filled with hardworking people from around the world, building homes for their families and a future for their communities. Yet this culturally, socially, and economically diverse metropolis.
All right, bear with me. The volume button just went away.
New York City is filled with hardworking people from around the world, building homes for their families and a future for their communities. Yet this culturally, socially, and economically diverse metropolis is at risk of becoming the nation's largest gated, or perhaps moated, community. As home prices and rents skyrocket, homeownership is moving further and further out of reach for local families. Unable to afford a down payment, these would-be homebuyers remain renters, often in overcrowded, unaffordable, and unhealthy conditions, putting further strain on the housing market. How did we get here? One reason is that while hundreds of thousands of affordable housing units have been built in recent decades, many of these affordable homes disappear, becoming market-rate housing with sales and rental restrictions timing out way too quickly. This results in more long-time residents being displaced and pushed away from their communities. So what can we do? The Community Land Trust model is one way we can build homes that last. With the Community Land Trust, or CLT, affordable housing is rooted permanently in the land itself. The CLT is a community-controlled nonprofit that owns the land and sells or rents the housing on that land to low-income New Yorkers. Homebuyers sign a 99-year lease with the condition that, when they sell their home, it will be sold at an affordable price for the next low-income buyer. The homeowner builds equity while the property remains affordable for another buyer of limited means. This creates a permanently affordable housing marketplace for generations to come, shielding the homes and community from speculators and preventing gentrification. Join us in building homes and communities that last. Advocate for permanently affordable homeownership by calling, visiting, writing, or tweeting at your local and state representatives.
Okay, so hopefully that was helpful to just kind of set the stage. A little bit more information on how this model was formed. And as the video said, this is a solution. We're a tool in the toolkit. We're not the only solution. We know that there are lots of other players doing affordable housing, and there's great work being done. This is a different kind of model to ensure that we have permanent affordability. So kind of a little bit of history here. We were the first community land trust in Western North Carolina, but there are over 300, I think now over 350 across the country. And there are others across the world as well. The two that are on your screen are just important for historical context. So the first rural CLT was formed in 1969 in Georgia, called New Communities, Inc., that still exists today. And the reason why they were formed is because African-American farmers were being pushed off of their land. And so they gathered resources, they purchased land so that they would not have that issue again in the future. So they would have that control of ownership. And that is really where the model started building from. In 1981 in Cincinnati, it was they did the first urban CLT, and that came out of a need because of gentrification and a lot of things that we, of course, have seen here in Asheville as well. So let's talk about how the model works. Ownership is probably the most important component to understand. And the way that it works is we separate the ownership of the land from the ownership of the structure. What ties the two together is a ground lease. It's just a legal tool to say that this is what has to happen with the home in the future. So basically that ground lease has restrictions on future sale of the home. There is a resale formula in the ground lease. And so really the simplest way to explain it is say that the future price of the home is capped so that when the current owner sells, it will still sell at an affordable price to an income qualified buyer. The other really important component to understand is the organizational component. So we are a nonprofit, we have a board of directors, just like every other nonprofit. And then we're also a membership organization. So that's kind of another layer of community ownership, community involvement. But what you see here is how our board is structured. So it's broken down into 3 different pieces. And the first 2 of those pieces are really members from the community. So we want to make sure that the community is involved in making the decisions that the organization is making. So a third of our board members are leaseholders. So these are individuals who have bought or rented properties from us, and they're in that agreement with us. Another third are community residents. So these are individuals who live or work in the communities that we focus on. And the final third are public interest representatives who may or may not live in the community, but they bring some sort of expertise, whether it's, finance, legal, things like that. Again, they might live in the community, they might not, but it is really just to make sure that we have all the skill sets that we need on the board, in addition to having that community representation. That's it.
And I'm going to go briefly over the historical background. I'm going to start with kind of like the wider regional context and then get specifically into our organization. So these are some photos that were taken by Andrea Clark in the 70s of the East End Valley Street neighborhood. So at that time, there were the legacy neighborhoods. We call them legacy neighborhoods now. These are the historically Black neighborhoods. And we have a particular focus on these neighborhoods at ABCLT because that is so intrinsically tied with our origin as an organization. So you can see here some examples of Black-owned businesses, an East End, a grocery store, a hotel, and a barber shop. And the legacy neighborhoods, for folks who aren't aware, are East End Valley Street, Burden Street, Southside, Shiloh, Stumptown, which is in Watford. Am I forgetting any?
Hey, question.
Mm-hmm.
How come Stumptown doesn't show up on the neighborhood for MLS? It's not an option.
It was kind of wiped out by 240.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's the remnants are just kind of included in Watford. So there's still like a Stumptown kind of, I don't know what they call themselves, but kind of like a neighborhood association, but they can't officially be one. But there is still like a community that gathers to celebrate the history of Stumptown.
Yeah, I met a woman that lives in Stumptown. She's like 4th generation, and her last name is Childs. And in Kenilworth, there's that Childs Avenue, which is a historic, like a wealthy white So I wonder if there's some sort of tie there.
Could be.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we showed some photos to kind of get a sense of it. Here's some of the numbers of that time, that era, just to show that these were all community assets that were in these legacy neighborhoods, which, because of systemic racism and other reasons, kind of were self-sufficient and created their own self-contained economies. So these are all community assets, all neighborhood-owned businesses. So when you spent your dollar, it really stayed in the neighborhood. And this is relevant because we don't just want to do individual affordable home ownership. We're really trying to recreate the conditions that allowed for these thriving, flourishing, self-sustaining neighborhoods. So in addition to individual home ownership, we also do commercial real estate and like community organization real estate. This slide is kind of like heavy and dense with information. I'm not going to get too far into it, but this is just to kind of show like how it's all interwoven, interlinked, the like national and federal policy, and how it really trickled down into the Asheville area and created these systems that are so entrenched that we're still, seeing the same patterns today. So even though this is from 100 years ago, it's still highly relevant. So the bubbles that are in red or maroon are kind of what happened at like the national or federal level. The green bubbles are related to urban renewal. And then the blue bubbles show when different public housing developments were built. So you all have probably heard of redlining. The Homeowners Loan Corporation kind of picked out the Black neighborhoods, the low-income neighborhoods, and said that these are undesirable areas that are high risk for loans. And so because of that, it was harder for Black families to become homeowners because the neighborhoods that they wanted to be in, where their families were considered high risk. It also meant that if you owned a home in one of those neighborhoods, it was harder to like refinance or to get, a line of credit and to like reinvest in your home. And it also meant that homes were undervalued, properties were undervalued in those areas. And so all of that led to not just like individual loss of generational wealth, but also kind of like a disinvestment in general at like the city level, that those neighborhoods were not taken care of in the same way. And it meant that when the Federal Highways Act was passed, they were looking at where should we put 240? Well, probably in these disinvested neighborhoods. So, you brought up Stumptown. Y'all can probably see this aerial is 240. So like underneath would be River Arts District, and it's going through Montford. And so where that kind of interchange is, that now only Hill Street is left. A lot of that was Stumptown and Black homeowners. And so when all of those homes were razed or destroyed,
Hillcrest.
Yeah, exactly. So like you can see that Hillcrest was built in conjunction with 240 being built and all of those homes being razed. And at the time they're like, well, your house is kind of, it's small or dilapidated. Like we're going to give you this brand new home that'll be a lot fancier. But they were meant to be short-term solutions. They were built to be last like 20 years. And of course, we all know that like it's still there. So yeah, you can see how it's all interrelated. And then urban renewal, again, the city, this happened nationwide, but the city said we're going to focus on these neighborhoods to reinvest in, but it just led to a lot of gentrification and displacement. And so, like you said, there are families who have been living in these neighborhoods for generations, and they have seen what's happened to these neighborhoods over time within their lifetimes. And so these neighborhoods saw that when the city of Asheville brought a consultant in 2014 to talk about gentrification and some potential solutions, the consultant mentioned a community land trust. So neighbors from these neighborhoods, as well as other community allies, got together and created a community-led steering committee that created ABCLT. And so that steering committee came up with our mission, which is to establish permanently affordable residential, commercial, and community spaces that empower Black, Indigenous, people of color, and low to moderate income residents to build social, economic, and cultural capital. And I know that I just spent a lot of time on the legacy neighborhoods and that whole history, but just to be clear, we do function throughout the county. And we do serve everyone who is 80% area median income or below. It's just like, this is our particular focus and values and where our heart lies.
Okay, so let's talk about the benefits of a community land trust. So first is affordability. You all know the prices. I don't have to go over that with you. When we started about 5 years ago, we were able to sell homes as low as $125,000. That has gone up to now we're in, it's 150 to 225 on the screen right now with interest rates and everything the way it is. We're looking at more of 175 to 200 really is what we're finding people are, or we're able to sell for given the funding gap and what people are qualifying for. So really we haven't had anyone qualify for over 200, just given incomes and interest rates and all of that. And then construction costs and acquisition costs, we currently are looking at 175 and above. That said, compared to the market, that's still a big difference between what's out there and what we're able to sell the homes for. So effectively, everything in between the cost for us to develop and the sales price is our funding gap. And that is what we have to raise in grants. It has to be grants because we are losing that money at the time of sale. That's why loans don't work for this kind of model, at least not long-term loans for when we're going to sell the homes. For acquisition, we are working with some loan products on acquisition, but at the time of sale, we really need to make sure that we have that full funding gap met in grants. So I talked a little bit about the price range. The actual price does depend on what somebody gets pre-qualified for. So we work with 3 different lenders. We, just like you all, tell people to shop around, see what they can get. But the lenders do have to work specifically with the community land trust products. So the ones that we have are ones that can provide that mortgage.
Who are those 3?
They are Pinnacle, who has a local location, and the other 2 do not. The other 2 are Tomo Mortgage, TOMO, and Land Home Financial. And the other 2, even though they're not local, they've done a lot more, really more than Pinnacle has, a lot more community land trust homes countrywide. So they've been really helpful in having that industry knowledge. And the other thing is buyers can use down payment assistance. Down payment assistance is a little bit tricky here in Asheville. Yes.
So your nonprofit finds the land, develops it, builds on it, sells it.
Yeah.
Okay. It never goes on the MLS.
Correct.
Got it.
Yes. And fun fact, our home sales are not supposed to be used for comps. So that's another question that everybody, yes. And that's just like general education that we need to do so that appraisers know to leave us out of comps. Because of course that would bring values down. Not every CLT does it the way that we do it. Sometimes they sell for, market rate, and then they layer and do like a soft-sided mortgage, kind of what Habitat does. We sell it for the price that's affordable to the buyer. But again, we are to be excluded from comps.
Do you know how that's typically noted? The sale was one of your roles.
Well, you would see that it was sold from us. I think that's really the best way to tell for an appraiser is to look at the history of sales.
Even once it transfers to the next one.
Yes, but we retain ownership of the land. So anytime you look up the property, it'll be two different pins and one will, even if we've sold the home, one pin will always be us that we still own the land. So that's another signal too that, the ownership has been separated.
That was my question. So if somebody buys and then they have 10 years of equity, they get to keep their equity.
Yes.
Okay.
So effectively, equity is at 2.25% compounded annually.
Yeah.
That sounds pretty low. There might be another slide, but I'll just go ahead and talk about it now. So if somebody buys from us for $150,000, over 10 years, at 2.25% equates to about $40,000, a little less than $40,000. So you take that original sales price of $150, you add the 40 in equity, you get the 190. That's the new sales price. So then buyer 2 pays 190, and buyer 1 gets to walk away with whatever equity there was. We don't have to continue to subsidize it. So it is a one-time upfront investment for us, and then the resale formula kind of calculates itself for the next price.
And I would just clarify too that the ABCLT also buys existing homes.
Yes.
Sometimes, rarely, in ready to go shape. Most of the time it's like, okay, we're looking at this house that needs, the purchase price plus X amount of upgrades, renovation. So it's not just vacant land that we build on.
Yes. Thanks for that. And it's been a somewhat slow process because of that. So we're doing these presentations not only because we want people to know about us and we want to sell more homes, but we also need to have more advocates in the community talking about who we are and what we do. We want to grow, we want to scale, we want to do more than just a couple of homes a year. And in order to do that, we really have to be better known in the community. So one of our asks is, get out there, talk to people about us and learn more.
So you're buying something under market value is what you pay for a property, or your grant helps you get market value? Is it a tax write-off?
So it's been interesting, and Buck actually has helped us with some transactions and volunteers on our real estate committee, so he's been involved and can answer questions more.
Yeah, I can jump in there if you want, because from our perspective as agents, I'm an agent. I haven't had a position at ABCLT, but I've been on the real estate committee for years, and so it's a challenge because we're trying to buy properties right in that zone where they go in 24 hours, even if they need a lot of renovation. And a lot of times we're competing against contractors who are going to renovate with cash, and we're talking about like, hey, we have this like different financing and loans, and we cut us a break because we're a nonprofit, and that's how, to answer your question a little bit, we're trying to get below asking a little bit, or below market price. And I imagine some of you are thinking like, that's all great, but hey, my seller wants to make money off this property that they inherited, or it's been in their family, or whatever. And so one thing we've done, and raise my hand, I'm not a lawyer, not an accountant, but I can repeat what they've told me and what I've seen happen, is say, just to use round numbers, say of a property that's the quote market value is $200,000, and it's just dirt, or it's a house that needs so much renovation that it's not very valuable in itself. And so to make it worthwhile for ABCLT, ABCLT might need to purchase it at $150. And your seller's like, I like what they're doing, but I'm not going to give up 50 grand. Well, one thing that we've done with some sellers is that 50 grand can be, there's a specific form, difference in sale value, basically acts kind of like an in-kind donation. And so you can get a 50 grand tax write-off. So if your person is looking at needing a bunch of deductions or something, that's something you can present this to them, make it more attractive. And again, ideally, we would want to know about properties as early as possible in the process, because once they get on the market, it's challenging for us. So if you guys have any properties that you think might be good options for us, let me know, let these guys know. And, we can try to be creative to work something out.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thanks, Beck. And then down payment assistance, I'll just say that we can work with different forms of down payment assistance. We have quite a few people asking if our buyers could do VA or FHA loans, and the answer is no, because again, it has to be a lender that knows a CLT product and has the ability to work with this CLT product, and FHA and VA, at least for now, do not. The other benefit is community. So I want to talk a little bit here about what you see on your screen is kind of about membership and board involvement and things like that. I've already touched on that a little bit. Homeowners are automatically members of the organization, and they can also vote like any other member can vote. But the other thing that I want to touch on here that isn't on your screen is just to kind of go back to Kit's part of the presentation and talking about like neighborhoods. So one of the things that this model does is, again, create that permanent affordability and protect the neighborhoods from further gentrification. We are kind of one home at a time, but even though that progress is slow, we are creating opportunities that will be affordable forever. And we're prioritizing legacy neighborhoods because of that urban renewal and disinvestment that has happened historically. And because what we see, of course, is land, for the most part, is cheaper in those neighborhoods than other neighborhoods like Montford. So developers are more likely to go there, flips are more likely to happen there. And then you get a neighborhood that, used to be affordable, where we used to see, I'll just use in the past few years, not even before the market did what it did, but you used to be able to see homes in the 200s, low 300s. Now homes are selling for, again, 600, 700,000. So we are really intentionally working in those neighborhoods to kind of rebuild the community as much as we can to make sure that there are affordable opportunities for people who live there or people who have been displaced and want to come back. And then finally, economic stability. This is where that formula is. So that 2.25% is the equity that they're building every year. The other two things that I'll say is, of course, our buyers have consistent mortgage payments, so just like anybody else, they have a 30-year fixed loan. What is also really important to point out is that their taxes are lower. So their taxes are only on the home, not the home and the land because they don't own the land, but they're also only on the price of the home, the purchase price of the home, so not the value of the home. And that's really helpful because, again, if somebody purchases for $150,000 and the value is $300,000 or more, then they're paying much less in taxes, and it will always stay that way as far as the taxes. And finally, how you can get involved. So we've touched on this a little bit already. I think the other thing that I'll add to what Buck said is that we have purchased most of our properties on the market. And so, we haven't gotten these huge discounts or anything, but we are fortunate to have agents like Buck who have worked with us pro bono. And so some of the sellers have reduced the price because of that, right? So if the agent's not making commission, that savings basically gets passed down to us. So that is actually towards the bottom of the screen here. So as far as helping us obtain pro bono services, so agents, appraisers, surveyors, inspectors, and attorneys. Last time I did this presentation, that was a really funny bullet point because it's like, oh, well, no appraiser or surveyor is going to come out. So we're in a totally different market today. So maybe we can get some new people on our team to get services donated. And then to Buck's point, and some things we've already been talking about, really encouraging sellers to think about us as an option, including us, not only the below market rate homes and land that we've already talked about, but including us in estate planning. So we've had several people who have come to us in the community, say, you know, I don't have any kids. My nieces and nephews are fine. They don't need to inherit my wealth. And so I'm willing to put my home into the CLT so that when I pass, it does become permanently affordable. So that is an option. And then the top bullet point just kind of highlights some ways that people can donate, right? So these are just suggestions for, you know, if you're not able to work with us pro bono and donate your entire commission, then consider a portion of your commission, things like that, to donate to us so that we can continue to operate as an organization. And I think that's it. We'll take questions.
You say y'all usually do once a year. Has anything done in 24? Like, and I didn't know about the commercial piece at all. This thing that's been done, or if I haven't done anything here on the commercial piece, but on the residential piece, has it been more last year?
Last year was a weird year. We did not sell any homes last year. So far, we've sold 2 single-family homes. So last year we did not sell any. We do have a commercial piece of property that is in the works, has been in the works for a while. So we'll hopefully be acquiring the land under a commercial building in West Asheville. I will kind of pivot and I'll come back to answering that question more directly. So as a result of the storm, really before the storm, we were just focused on home ownership and this program that we're talking about now. But as a result of the storm, we pivoted, we created some rental programs. So we created a temporary housing program where we matched families that were displaced and lost everything to landlords in the area. And those landlords, a lot of the times, were property owners that had short-term rentals or medium-term rentals that agreed to convert those and work with us. So that was really helpful. And then some rental assistance as well, where people who didn't lose their homes, but had their income was impacted. And so we were able to assist with some rental assistance. So through that, we served 50 families, which for us going from, selling 2 homes in a few years to serving 50 families was huge. And that was like probably less than a third of the need of the applications that we got. So there's
like 150. Did anybody go to start the process? Pinnacle directly, or they have to come to you first?
They would come to us. I mean, it doesn't hurt for people to, talk with lenders and understand the process, even get a pre-qualification, if they kind of want to see what they can pre-qualify for on their own. But our model is so complex that it takes some time for people to really work with us and understand. So it's best that they kind of come to us as soon as they're ready to start thinking about home ownership. We kind of have multiple different touch points through the process. So they come to us, they have an orientation with us, which is a longer version of this. Then they have a one-on-one, then we send them to home buyer education, then they come back to us and talk about next steps. Then we get them prepared for pre-qualification. So it's kind of a process where we check in with them along the way.
Is that all in-house, or y'all use for the nonprofit?
Yeah, we partner with OnTrack for their home buyer education. Yeah. We're a team of 2. Hang on one second. I just want to come back to your question around like home sales and things like that. So we actually have an open house next Sunday. It is on our social media right now if you want to get all the information and not have to remember it. So next Sunday from 2 to 4, this is a home that we've had for a little while and just haven't had the capacity to do the renovations on. So we're finally wrapping that up. It's in the Burton Street neighborhood on Fayetteville Street. 2-bedroom, 1 bath will sell for below 200. We're looking at like 175 to 185, somewhere in that range. So if you want to stop by, you're welcome to. That home is looking for a buyer. So if you know anybody, please let them know as well. This year, our goal is to hopefully sell 3 homes. Again, in addition to all of this rental work that we've done, our goal is to sell 3 homes. And we also want to be able to expand. So we want to be able to add Swananoa as a priority area, in addition to our legacy neighborhood. So working with organizations in Swananoa to really make an impact there. I'm gonna come back to you. Just one second.
I do have several questions, but
Yeah.
I will alternate with others. Do you work any with on-track?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah,
good.
so-
Because I know they're gonna start doing in-person classes again.
Yes, they already started.
Yeah.
They started, I think, last year, and that's been super helpful, because it's so much information, and for somebody to like sit and do all of that online was a lot, so, yeah, I have them.
So is it mostly individual houses, or do you get like, if you buy the land and you have somebody building on it, do you build like apartments or condominiums?
Not yet, we haven't.
So they're all individual houses, right?
Yeah, they're all single family homes. We would like to expand and do more multifamily as well as rentals. So again, we don't own any properties that we rent out right now, but that is a possibility in the future as well.
So how many properties do you have at this time?
So we've sold 2 single family homes, and then we have 4 additional properties that we own that are all single family properties.
So you only have 6 total in the area?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's tough.
Yeah.
Are you done?
Go on.
So you have 6 properties, 2 sold, 4 available?
4 in process. So
Okay.
the one is now available. Another one has a buyer. So those are 2 existing homes. And then the rest is land that we haven't.
So the
built
one
on
that
yet.
you spoke of, like, it's not gonna be on the MLS, so how, you said social media, is that the best way to find out when you have stuff and?
Yeah.
Interesting. So like if I know somebody who is wanting to buy a house and probably would qualify through your program, what's the best next step? I have them contact who? You? You? Okay, and your name is
Kit.
Kit.
Yeah, we'll hand out info later.
You have cards and stuff? Okay, cool. Interesting. All right.
Yeah, and so the important piece that you mentioned is that income qualification. So you can also find that on our website. It changes every year. We just follow HUD guidelines on maximum household size, but as long as they're below that, they can move forward to the next step.
Do you have an incredibly long waiting list for buyers?
I wouldn't say incredibly long. We have maybe 10 who are pre-qualified and on the wait list. They all have different needs. Some have larger families, so don't qualify for or aren't interested in the 2-bedroom that we have coming up.
Yeah, so it's tough wanting as many people as possible to know about us, and then also not having 200 people on the wait list. So we have to kind of
Does it
manage
overlap with
expectations.
Habitat houses?
Sometimes, yeah, sometimes. So,
I guess they should be on the list for both.
Yeah,
They get
yeah.
first, right?
And there's some people who don't qualify with Habitat, there's some people who don't qualify with us, right? So we kind of work together to exchange applicants when those situations happen.
2 questions. One being, are there any changes or adjustments or recertifications on income, or is it only based on the income when they first purchase the house? It doesn't matter if they happen to do a much better job like the next year.
Correct.
That their amount doesn't change.
Yeah, we only check income up until closing.
And then I think you answered this already, just to confirm your geographic area, basically just legacy neighborhoods in Swananoa, or what areas are you all?
So as an organization, we want to serve the whole county. We only have funding right now in the city of Asheville. So that's another constraint. We have some funding earmarked in Woodfin, and we're hoping to get new funding for Swananoa. But that is why we have stayed small. We have focused our limited resources in the legacy neighborhoods to not spread ourselves too thin.
But basically, there wouldn't be, let me know if I'm misunderstanding, there wouldn't be a path if there were someone who wanted to bring your property that was outside of those areas that you have funding for right now, or?
Right now, we're working on securing financing, so we could do things like that. Yes.
That would be a good problem to have, so.
Yeah.
Bring it to us, we'll try to figure it out.
Yeah.
So it's just within the 80% of the median income.
Right.
So it's not like on track on like 36-38% of fixed income ratio. Yeah.
We do have numbers for that as well. So I think for the housing, ratio. We want their housing costs to be 30% or less of their income. And then debt to income, I always get this number mixed up, but I think it's like 40 or 45. So we let the lenders figure that out. Like we tell them this is what we want, this is what we expect. And then the lenders look at all of those numbers.
And that IRS form I was talking about is form 8283. Yeah. Yeah, it's
So consult your
a catch-all
accountant.
form. People are donating like art or something, but you can also use it for real estate. At least our buyers or our sellers.
I know Beloved's looking to buy land, or housing, actually. They're not related with you guys at all in any way.
No, and they have recently bought land in Swananoa. I'm not sure exactly what they're going to be doing there. We have talked about potentially partnering. We don't know what that would look like, and everything's crazy right now. But yeah, they're doing really good stuff. And if we are able to partner, we can bring the prices down even more potentially.
Yeah, her daughters play basketball with my boy.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're movers and shakers for sure.
Yeah, that's cool. So y'all live here?
Yeah, I'm in Swananoa for about 10 years now.
Were you okay from the lead?
Yeah, I'm behind W.D. Williams and we're up on a hill.
Yeah.
But then right as you get outside of the school, like that's all gone.
Yeah.
Go to Pat Cemetery.
On the other side of the school. So yeah, I could walk across our neighbor's land and get to the cemetery.
Do your lenders work with some of the local people for down payment assistance like mountain housing? Because I had somebody, I worked with 3 different organizations to get them into their condo. And they also work with the city of Asheville because apparently you can get on the list to where you get some assistance towards your rent. And she was able to get some assistance towards paying her mortgage from the city of Asheville, as well as getting a nice big down payment thing from Mountain Housing.
Yeah. So yes, they will work with Mountain Housing. It's of course up to the buyer if they, want to pursue that because Mountain Housing has to be repaid with interest. So that gets tricky. And the other tricky part is that there is down payment assistance available through NCHFA, the State Housing Finance Agency, but that only works with Pinnacle because they have a local location. So our other 2 lenders can't take advantage of NCHFA, but they have a couple of other options. So it is always putting together a puzzle, figuring out where we can get additional money from.
How do we find a way to make CLTs not nonprofits? So that you can have, you can have more employees, more funding.
Yeah, I actually just had a finance conversation yesterday about that. So typically it takes at least 10 years for a CLT to kind of get to a point of sustainability where we're generating enough revenue to be able to pay for our operations. In this market, that number of years has probably grown. I haven't seen those numbers. So what I've been talking about is how do we have a layered approach where we're not only doing single family homes, kind of one home at a time, but how do we supplement that with potentially multifamily housing?
Yeah.
Because we don't want to lose track of our mission to work in legacy communities and do this kind of infill to create affordability. But at the same time, that is the most expensive way to do it. And probably the reason that most other nonprofits are not doing single family homes in the city.
So if you did multifamily, would they be like condo sales? Okay.
Could be rentals as well. be any combination of
See, I
things.
feel like it's the rental and it kind of combats the whole goal of like homeownership.
Yeah, well, A, no, but not everybody wants to be a homeowner, so we do want to create options for people who just want to rent. But B, for some people, like we've had some people in our pipeline for a couple of years. And so for some people, that affordable rental is a stepping stone towards homeownership. So we want to be able to create that pipeline as well.
From the, storm over ones that, the big rental that you said, assistant, are y'all carrying that? I mean, so like short-term rental, are that still being carried for just people that maybe got like the 18 months rental assistance, or the owners are, or majority of owners are okay with the long term?
It depends. Most owners were kind of like, we'll do it through the winter and then we're going to go back to short-term rentals. And in most cases, that's been okay. Our families have been able to find something on their own and move. And some are willing to continue working with us. Some are raising their prices, so it's a mixture of landlords and kind of their comfort levels and their need for profit and things like that.
But you're not continuing, it doesn't sound like you continue to rent it. That was only just for.
Yes. So we still have families who we are supporting, but all of our funding has been allocated, so we're not able to serve new families unless we get additional funding. Yeah.
Do you all partner, or have you considered partnering with like affordable housing developers?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I was actually on the phone with one today, talking about some 2 bedrooms that he's got built in West Asheville.
If you have relationships, we would welcome any introductions.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, everyone. This has been great. I appreciate the engagement, the questions. We've got our contact information. We'll share this with, can we share it with you, Nadine, and then get it out somehow? So you've got all the information.
And go ahead and take a photo because I don't have business cards actually.
Okay.
So that will have to do.
Thanks, everyone. We'll stick around if you think of other questions.
Home Trust is here, having this, you have to do a vote.
Oh, that's right. I'm sorry.
3 people. Yeah, that's the problem.
I'll leave that up there.
Hello, good afternoon. How are y'all today? Good.
Great loss.
Good, I'm glad. I was like, what would they want on a nice kind of spring chilly day? Well, my name is Tabitha Scott. I'm a mortgage lender with Home Trust Bank, and we love partnering with LOTSAR. And so a couple of things about Home Trust. Next year, we will celebrate 100 years being in our community. We are actually the last local bank in town after Asheville Savings sold to First Bank. Their operations kind of moved out of the state. So we are headquartered right here in Asheville. Our operations are right here. And we serve North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, Tennessee, and Florida, Virginia. So one thing that I always like to talk about is that, working with local, doing business with local, that means your processors, your underwriters, all of our operations are local. So they're living, they're raising their families, they're working right here in our community, which is really important to me when I'm thinking about doing business with someone. We have all of any type of loan that you would want, we can help you with. We do conventional, and we do all of the government loans, so FHA and VA and USDA. We can do refinances, second homes, investment homes. We do great construction loans. So we work well with in that arena, and we have a well-oiled construction loan with just only 10% down, and we work well with builders. Let's see what else that I can share with Home Trust. I started with Home Trust on the retail side, and moved over to the mortgage side. I left home trust for a few years and realized how special it is here and came back home and have loved being on the mortgage side. We are very competitive. We fight tooth and nail leadership on keeping our rates and closing costs down. We compete with, lots of amazing lenders in town, but when I'm getting other loan estimates, we're very competitive, and we want to stay that way as your community bank. Any questions that you can think of? We have some cards out here in the foyer, but we're easy. HTB.com, can go over to the mortgage side and find all of us there. There's a lot of loan officers, but I see some familiar faces and appreciate you. Yeah. So yes, thank you. We do a lot of down payment assistance. I personally do a lot. So we work with some fantastic agencies, of course, Mountain Housing here locally, which we love, partnering with them. We work with North Carolina Housing, and they are pretty much my number one that I use quite a bit. $15,000 for down payment assistance. That can be broken between down payment and closing costs, so you can split that. That's what I have 2 in my pipeline doing right now. And then we also have Federal Home Loan Bank that I think Home Trust and one other are the only ones that work with that agency in town. That is another phenomenal one. They just increased their limits. So a first-time home buyer can get $17,500. A community partner, we all know community partners. Those are your firefighters. Those are your CNAs at the hospital. If they work in the cafeteria at the hospital or a school or a bus driver, they are considered a community partner, and they can receive up to $20,000 for down payment assistance. You can stack that with North Carolina Housing also. There are income limits. You have to make sure that you can fit within those. A lot of people do. North Carolina Housing, you can make, if you're a family of 3, you can make $108,000 and still receive that down payment assistance. It's a little bit less with Federal Home Loan Bank, but these North Carolina Housing is a state agency. Federal Home Loan Bank is a federal agency, and that one's a little bit more difficult at the end. So I set the disclaimer of like, this is rocky, this is hard, but it's worth it. I mean, and that is some people's only path to home ownership, is to have this down payment assistance. So I am happy to help and passionate about helping like first-time home buyers. But I will say that the community partner one, you don't have to be a first-time home buyer to take advantage of that. You can be a repeat buyer. So I helped a lady that moved here from Colorado. She works at Blue Ridge Community College. She had her own $30,000 in down payment assistance. She had not owned a home in 3 years. That's the definition of a first-time home buyer. You have not owned a home in 3 years. So it had only been a year and a half, but we were able to stack that last year it was 15,000. This year it's 20,000 on a community partner. So it was a win-win for her. And, thankfully her realtor knew that I was passionate about helping people that needed down payment assistance, because it got her payment where she felt more comfortable, even though she had her own down payment. So every little bit helps. Talking with my hands, talking fast and with my hands, do a dance next. But I'd love to help if you have any questions. I'm Tabitha Scott.
Do you have contact info?
Yeah, I've got some cards.
Yeah. I think I forgot that was total income or taxable income.
So it's always, W-2, when you're a W-2 employee, we are always looking at your income before taxes. If you are a self-employed borrower, we're always looking at that 931 or after all of the deductions. So it's not the same. W-2 before taxes, self-employed after all of your deductions. There are add backs that we can add back and give that person a little bit more. But have great questions, girl. Thank you. Well, thanks so much. Have a great rest of your day. Nice to meet you. Yeah.